Kwe, Annie, bonjour, hi. Je m'appelle Lila Cashew et je suis directrice exécutive avec de Hondeganson Doje, l'environnement réseau pour la recherche en santé des Autochtones du Québec. Nous aimerions commencer ce webinaire par remercier tous nos panélistes qui ont accepté de partager avec nous et avec vous aujourd'hui le travail qu'ils font et leur engagement envers le milieu de la recherche. Nous aimerions également remercier toutes les personnes qui sont ici en tant que spectateurs et qui partagent notre intérêt à alimenter les discussions portant sur les pratiques prometteuses favorisant les environnements de recherche par et pour les premiers peuples. Nous nous trouvons actuellement à Tiohtià:ke, territoire non cédé Kanien'kehá:ka, aussi fréquenté historiquement par la nation Anishinaabe. Cependant, comme nos spectateurs et nos panélistes proviennent de plusieurs endroits du territoire, aujourd'hui appelé Québec, nous vous invitons à partager dans le chat les peuples autochtones qui ont façonné le territoire sur lequel vous vous trouvez aujourd'hui. Je vais le passer à ma collègue Audrey.
Donc, Shikon. Kwe, bonjour. Mon nom est Audrey Monette-Deschaines et je suis agente de planification et de recherche pour l'ERRSA Québec, dont le Dahari Consondonji. Et on vous souhaite la bienvenue pour le 6e webinaire de la série Exemples pratiques de recherche en contexte autochtone. Donc, juste un petit rappel que dans la série, on met en lumière des projets de recherche qui sont réalisés entièrement par des organisations et des communautés autochtones. Et on présente également des partenariats de recherche entre le milieu universitaire et les communautés ou organisations autochtones, donc ce qui est le cas aujourd'hui avec nos deux groupes de panélistes. Donc, on est vraiment heureux d'avoir un moment pour discuter et en apprendre davantage sur les deux initiatives vraiment importantes qui vont être diffusées aujourd'hui. Et en premier lieu, donc, on accueille Nico Trocmé, qui est du Center for Research on Children and Families à l'Université McGill, et Patricia Montambault, qui est agente de recherche pour la CSSS-PNQL, donc la Commission des services de santé et sociaux des Premières Nations du Québec-Labrador. Aujourd'hui, ils vont venir nous présenter un projet qui est terminé, qui est l'analyse des trajectoires des jeunes des Premières Nations assujettis à la loi sur la protection de la jeunesse. Donc, je vais m'effacer tranquillement et donner tout l'espace à mes deux collègues.
Merci beaucoup, Audrey. Donc, je vais commencer. Je vais partager mon écran. Voilà, est-ce que ça fonctionne? C'est bon?
Parfaitement.
Merci. Donc, ça nous fait plaisir aujourd'hui de venir vous présenter un exemple de collaboration inspirante que nous avons construite au cours de plus de 15 ans maintenant entre différentes universités, mais ici plus particulièrement avec M. Trocmé, Nico Trocmé, et j'aimerais aussi souligner avec Tonino Esposito là, de l'Université de Montréal, qui a vraiment été un important collaborateur et qui ne pouvait pas être avec nous aujourd'hui. Nous le saluons. Donc, c'est un projet de recherche en 4 volets qui a commencé en 2008, qui s'est terminé en 2020. Donc, sur ces différents volets de recherche-là, il y a différents chercheurs qui se sont...
Different researcher that got involved as well along the path, and that really led to other collaboration and research always under the same thematic. This is one of the reasons where we could say that it was an example of very inspiring collaboration, research collaboration around the research with the analysis of the trajectory of First Nation youth subject to the Youth Protection Act. I will start then to talk to you shortly from the AFN, the Assembly of First Nations People in Quebec, Labrador, and also all of their commissions and different or regional organizations. So the Assembly of First Nations People was created in 1985, and it's composed with 43 community for First Nations people in Quebec and Labrador, and they represent at least 10 nations at the total: Abénaquis, Algonquin, Atikamekw, Écrit, Huron-Wendat, and Malicite, the Mi'kmaq, Mohawk, and Innu and Naskapi. And as you can see here on the AFN, there's a youth network, there's sustainable development, health and education, and the Commission of Development Economic, and also Commission and Development of Resource Human Resources, and for which I work now for more than 15 years. Actually, the Commission is a regional organization, Health and Social Services, we call it the Commission. There's about 10 years after the creation of the FFN, and it's really an organization that is regional, that is really working with all of the communities in Quebec, but most particularly with the community that are not under convention, not status, because this community always meet different important issues, the legal aspect between the federal and provincial, of course, in health and social services. So we're really an organization that is defending the interest and the support to the community for the obtaining the achievement of their objectives in health, wellness, culture, and self-determination. Right now, the Commission we're more than 100 employees in different sectors of activities, where research is a great sector and for which I'm working with. The research sector, we're really leading many activities together. We have population inquiry, and we've been leading them for many years. And I think it's led by the Center of Government for Nation People. It's in Ottawa. It's a national organization, and they're funding the large population inquiries. And we have an inquiry on health, Aboriginal people health, and we have for many years developed a portal of watch surveillance or monitoring, and we try to cover the management of different indicators in health through this portal, and these indicators are mainly fed by the results that we have collected from the larger inquiries, but also from the local data as well. Lately, we have opened a field of activity around governance and information. There's an undergroup. We have a subgroup that is really working in collaboration with different actors with community in the elaboration of developing this regional center of governance of information and data. And we also have project of evaluation that we are leading ourselves. Also, we're collaborating with different researchers in Quebec right now. We have a collaboration right now with almost each of the university in which we are solicited. I will now pass on the micro to Nico. So it's really a story of a partnership between the Commission and a group of researchers working on the research centers oriented at the family, and also a colleague that is part of the McGill Center, but is also in Montreal. He's a research chair in Montreal. He's all access on the different question, the similar question. And they have started the communication and the collaboration with the Commission. We were already launched and engaged in many, many different studies, a series of studies as we do every 5 years on the signaling of violence and negligence to children. Study specifically that was used in a series of inquiries and the tribunal session to try to demonstrate in a very quantitative way the overrepresentation of Indigenous children in the youth protection system. We also continue to do analysis and the data analysis, specifically in Quebec. We have developed a data bank, longitudinal data bank, following the children that were positioned and placed in families that are not Indigenous with the youth protection. We also received a grant in 2012 in a collaboration with the Commission and other organizations in order to continue this collection of administrative data and also to develop a capacity of research, which are organization of First Nations people and also the other youth protection organization. And actually, we were always involved with the provinces and territories to develop performance indicators and through Canada. So that was the kind of studies that we were involved in. And Patricia, can move on to the next slides. In 2008, we kind of got in contact with the Commission following a series of events. The first one would be we had produced this report of the Canadian institution of the incidents related to the overrepresentative in Canada. And the Commission was really interested in having certain specific data in Quebec. And the Commission has already started to make a request with the Association of in Quebec in order to of the Association of the Canadian Association of Youth Centers in order to collect some data. Actually, it was quite forced because it wasn't with no enthusiasm at all that the youth center wanted to share their data, and they had to do a collection of data, and it really didn't work at all. And finally, they end up producing data that were completely unusable, and even with a bit of goodwill, eventually, they were unable to draft a clear portrait of the children, Indigenous children in Quebec that were receiving grants with this programming. So if we go on the other slides, the next year following, the Commission, which is 2009, a clinical advisory committee that was encompassing the Association of Centers in Quebec, the Ministry of Health and Social Services in Quebec, and also the Aboriginal Affair, Indigenous Affair, in the Commission to see how they could have a better access, better understand the children's path. And this is how we got involved as a center of research. It was our specifics, our expertise. We came in touch with the Commission and the other actors. And this is where we really served as a researcher on a clinical or technical level in order to see how we could access to these the two ministers and get able to get their data. And also on the next slide. So we finally managed to put in place a series of analysis. And then again, with the collaboration with all these different actors that we've just talked about, is specifically on point of view of Indigenous youth protection. The Indigenous people have the habit of trying to work with the federal and the provincial and also the different regional organization. It's always very difficult. It's very complicated because each of them is defining its activities in the same way. They define the children in a different way, and they explain and define the placement in a different way too. So it's very difficult to gather all this and give it some kind of a name. But there's different system with all the challenges that are associated with that. The idea actually was to find a way to enhance the administrative data that were into these different database, which is provincial and whatever, and different administration. So how we could use it to understand better the path of the Indigenous people. Now we could do this on the next slide, Patricia. And four component, four factually, but it's the most qualitative, and Patricia will be talking about it. Now we have three qualitative data. In 2013, we went to see the financial services and federal Affaires autochtones du Québec Grand Nord, and then afterwards the ministry had their own, which was the INAC, actually, Indigenous and Northern Affairs Canada, and we have been able to collect the data that we had. We're quite limited, but we were beneficial enough to find them, and it was very, very badly defined. And then we went directly into the data of the establishment, the analysis of a management data from institution. And then we tried to pull out some of the data there specifically. This is where we were able to have a better access to specific data of Indigenous children which were identified as per se, because of course they were not that clear, but on the indigenous children, the problem is the unidentification. It's not that bad as other population, by the way. And this is where we're able to follow the trajectory of the children, seeing on the clinical data side. And finally, we also had to use the financial data. I'm not going through, I'm giving you sort of the details so you could understand certain points, so you could really emerge the system where there's not the indigenous people do not have the habit of questioning themselves concerning these data. So it's so complicated. And just to give you an example, just to try to sort of finding where the children were placed and then changed. So we found out that the best way to see this was to look into the financial data, where were the date of payment and so forth. That was basically the only way we could really follow them, because the financial data are more computerized than other statistics. So there's a great cleanup to do in those data. I put the accent a lot on this because this is where the challenge of the capacity and the loss of infrastructures are really showing. It's a major obstacle regarding the access to the data on population specific for the First Nations people. And even if we're asked to have access to data, there's great obstacles that are in front of us through the structure and the collection of data. Sometimes it's so complicated that we don't even get to it. In this case, we fortunately had the resources and the time, necessary resources and time to do this. I'll give you a bit of an idea of the data we were able to collect. Let's say as a starting point, we were interested in overrepresentation, like in red, we have the rates supplied or given for the indigenous children, and the orange for the non-native people. And on the left, we have recording the signaling. The rate was 4 times larger than the non-native people, 56.6. So, and it's important to note that the way we or decline that regarding to comparing to the other in the analysis that we had in the rest of Canada before, we had we were able to demonstrate that this overrepresentativeness of the children is associated to the issues of poverty related to lack of services, drug and addiction issues, also housing. It's I think that we present these data. We don't have the impression that where the violence is higher are the community that are facing basic issues, structure issues at a very, very, very heavy level, much more than the non-native environment. So following the decision that were taken, we were find again the same overrepresentativity, but there again it's even larger as far as the collaboration, the final justice measures, and specifically at the placement. For the signaling, of course, we already noticed that it's 4 times higher. The placement, we have 8 times more higher for the children of First Nations people versus the non-native children. And then I'm moving on. The next slide is just to sort of give you a bit of an example of the results. We have there again in consultation with the 2 members that the commission would offer us, we were trying to compare how far this variation are noted, or how important or different are they, what are the specific cases. It's again always about the overrepresentation of the First Nations people, specifically spotted where people are lower than 2. The placement was 11 times higher. We have a signaling time of for children less than 2 years old of 175 per thousand. That means 16%, almost 16% of the children each year, kids of less than 2 years old, are noted and signaling at the youth protection. It's a figure that has absolutely no sense at all. as a clinical level, it is clear that it helped. It's a service that was absolutely badly used and applied regarding to the needs. It's an open door that has no sense at all for families that are facing difficulties. Next slide, Patricia. Once that's the last one for the result. There again, you could see, check it in the results. We have the results just about everywhere, but I make the accents is what we see most. We see why the children of First Nations people are so signaled. It's mainly in case of maltreatment, abuse, negligence, where they're 6 times higher, and then for the physical abuse and sexual abuse, there's an overrepresentation. Incredible. It's negligence that is really the distinction between the abuse and poverty. It's almost impossible to do. So of course it makes sense, makes no sense to accuse parents and being them responsible of their poverty. It's the kind of data that we're able to explore with the Commission, and then afterwards, what was, of course, became evidence was we need to put them in context. If we can now move on to the next slide, and I think it is your turn. Yes. And I will continue. I'm sorry if there's some sounds around me. I hope you hear me clearly. Yes, everything is fine. So the fourth component is in a relationship with the Health and Social Services, the Commission, with a third component that there was some kind of consensus to say that we must continue the research, and we should continue in a more qualitative way so we could understand better and clearer with the heart of the community of a point of view of First Nations people. What is around the negligence? What is abuse? What are the people perceiving negligence? How do they understand this phenomena? So there was a funding, a research funding given by the inquiry directly at the Social Commission to give some funding on the research. So, by the way, this research here allowed us to demonstrate that for many people of First Nations people that are in a community where the first language is neither English or French, the concept of negligence towards a child remains difficult to understand because it is not a concept that exists in their social structure, traditional social structure. Traditionally, the responsibility of responding to the need of a child is actually is a shared responsibility by the extended family, and it still is current today. It's still the way it functions today. There are still communities that are really respecting this traditional way, and we were able to understand from the point of view of the people that are in the community that actually there is no parents that wants to be negligent. It's really the colonial laws and rules that puts them all the time. Nico really expressed it really well. Poverty and negligence are regularly mixed and mellowed with all the other situations, and they're definitely misunderstood from the different sides of colonial and Indigenous people. So let's move on to the next one. In the sector facilitating the collaboration, research collaboration, actually, as you can see, there's analysis, research works that has been led, basic data analysis that were not possible if we had not collaborated with the research that already had agreement. They already had access to this databases. Us in the Commission, First Nations, do not have access to up to date yet to all the information concerning them and their hold and by the ministries and the different organizations that are not Indigenous. So all different government bodies that are absolutely non-Indigenous. So it's an idea of a shared to understand the shared understanding. There was a social phenomena here that is really unfolding. There was really a will in the heart of the researcher and also ministries the idea and the hope, understand, the will to understand better. So that was really facilitating for the base of the research collaboration. And there's also the structure of the Commission and Health and Social Services for First Nations people that is really specific in Quebec. Actually, it does not exist in other provinces across Canada. And they're facilitating it's really an open door to get into the First Nations people, but also with the federal and provincial. It's really a turning point. And also with the research, so all the structure that opens the door to all the partners, facilitate the implementation and the realization of this different component and research, it really to noted the link of trust. Like I mentioned earlier, we work with many researchers, and what makes the difference actually is the position of the researcher that will be working with an organization of First Nations people, but also in a mind of giving, taking, equal. All the parties will receive as much as they're giving. And I think that all the parties are really able to benefit from the results of this research. So this is really the base of a trust relationship on long term. Like I said, we've been working with researcher, collaborating with research for many years, and really enchanted about that. We're really happy. Yes, so because I can continue on the question of the fundamental role of the structure of the Commission. It's been working for years doing similar research in Canada and observation. There's nothing equivalent anywhere else in Canada as far as the researcher to have access to this infrastructure. It's absolutely extraordinary. But on top of that, more than that, for this kind of analysis, these data, as I mentioned earlier, they are very bad shape. The ministries, it never analyze their own data, and specifically regarding the First Nation children trajectories. But even then, it being a non-native or not, it does no priority for them. They're really badly control, take, and analyze their own data. I imagine you know it all. They completely ignoring, the government completely ignored its own data. So we came in, actually, there was a work of restoration, net cleaning up, reorganizing, because it's reported that's kindly went on for 12 years almost. So, and let's not minimize the importance of having a grant for or subsidies for research, because it's incredibly important. It's been hundreds and thousands of millions of dollars that were lost and wasted, and we need to have a great need to do this cleaning up, reorganization of data and so forth, in order to be able to do this without coming and asking Commission or others for funds. It was essential. So the other thing that was also essential in this project was the role of the association, the center, association of youth centers. We need to act to knock at each youth center's doors and renegotiate with each of the youth centers to have access to this organization that could talk to for everyone, that'd be the spokesperson for all the other centers. So we needed to do that to see how we could better organize their project. That's absolutely essential. Each facilitating actor, the challenge actually, and that we meet, and the dismantling of all this following the reform of Barrette complicated the access to data in an incredible, undescribable way. And the project, or certain aspect of the project, we had to put on the side. It was really catastrophic regarding the action of the research. This reform was a total catastrophe. What it was making absolutely impossible access to the data, it being for the organization of First Nations people or the researcher of other needs. In a general way, on top of that, the infrastructure necessary in order to be able to analyze and clean up these data and so forth, and the infrastructure in order to accomplish this work, it doesn't exist on the side of the community. So I could tell you another challenge that we have met, because the object of, or part of this project, was to develop the capacity in order to allow the community to access their own data in a much more systematic and easy way. But on our side, on the university side, we had a lot of difficulties to find students in my field specifically, which is social work, that could be interested and or that had a capacity at this level of statistic analysis. I could tell you that we show you the result that we had. Some that were very useful, which has a very important, and but the general way. The project was very well developed, but I could tell you that where I am really disappointed is the fact that the capacity building did not bear any fruit. It was not successful at all. It was it's very bad because it really did not show what we wanted to demonstrate. So again, here it's me. I continue. So the current issues right now, it's again the Youth Centers Association does not exist anymore. So we do not have any access to these data, the data that were done through the subsidized. The agreement that we had developed were not being reproduced or were not accepted, repeated. It's very frustrating because to try to understand the impact of the changes financially and best subsidies for the prevention of placement of children on the side of the community, the First Nations people. We cannot start to examine the impact of these changes because we do not have any data since 2013. And there again, the changes made this even more difficult, the access of these data. So we're a little bit in an impasse here. What we started this project, we had a much better access to the data. The main challenge was the technical and financial situation regarding the data analysis of the data. But right now, with all the experience and the technical and all, the access to data has become almost impossible. It's up to you, Patricia. I will move on. I see time running. There's maybe 2 minutes left for us. The benefits for the Commission in the framework of this collaboration is, of course, to have been able to have a better comprehension of the situation. It would not have been possible otherwise without the collaboration of the researchers, like you have realized that they have access, expertise, and so forth. And then actually the results of the research allowed the Commission to play this role of defending of the rights and representing the First Nations people, and to sort of move on and continue on the Inquiry National Assembly and the different commission, Inquiry Commission. The data were really, really used greatly. And of course, the positive benefits, of course, as I mentioned earlier, it's the research collaboration, which led to other collaboration with other researchers. And this is really a very precious collaboration that has been there for long times, and we will want to continue and pursue them. So I will move on to the next slides, Nico. Well, it's nothing very new on that side. Actually, we do have a collaboration that is well established from a long time, and it's fantastic. We have their potential to continue working if we can find a better way to disseminate the information or access to the information. So the benefits for us, of course, is to be able to produce scientific data, journals, and also to have a better recognition with the heart of the university, at the core of the university, because this is very important of this participating collaboration. Universities are not always is oriented towards this kind of work, and to be able to show in a period of a year, 10 years almost, what we have been able to develop with research and also as collaboration. And it really helps all these participating approach within the universities. So I'm letting you the ending word, Patricia. So actually, there again, the importance of having this reciprocity and the collaboration and research, which is actually between each of the parties, so that each one could benefit from it. And it also takes an adjustment from both sides in order, because the researchers are brought to produce a result, and it's the idea is to popularize these information and to be accessible to all the First Nation, not only results that are used only for scientific articles or and vice versa. We also solicitate when we do different collaboration of this kind of time to read and to write scientific results. So it brings us to make a step more than what we are doing usually. So it's really enriching and fulfilling on both sides. Again, it's still as important of the time and the infrastructure, to support this collaboration. I think that we will never say it again. Collaboration is a major important and a sustainable way on a long term, which requires investment, time, passion, and whatever for the researcher and the fundings as well. Voila. Thank you very much. I will stop my sharing. Thank you very much, Nico and Patricia, for this presentation. I really like the way you have presented the figures, but you moved over the tendons to put always a blame on the individual, but to directly to the root of the cause of the social situation. I think it is rarely taken into consideration. And of course, that statistics is not telling all the story, and it's very important to remember the figure remains a figure, and it does express what it is. And we have very little data, yes, and the data are sometimes related to the importance of Quebec, which do their own inquiries, they generate their own data, they do their own analysis, and it's so we're really happy and lucky to have this organization that does this incredible work. I'm really happy the way you presented this project in this real rooted ways. And I will now change. I will now let Caroline Hervé. We're very happy to welcome her today. She's presenting us something completely differently. She's working at Laval University, and it's I think that the title has been changed for acknowledgement of the legal practices. So I will let you talk to us about it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all this. I'm really happy to be here with you. I'm always very happy to share our experience and connection with actually the title has changed. You will soon witnessing it. So actually the title has changed for, I wanted to explain it to you a little bit, but this is a networking in connection with the project presentation, but I still kept the word revitalization because I think that the passage from one into the other one is really talking, it's really significant. So actually I will start with explain. I had a colleague that was supposed to present with me. I shared the presentation, but she cannot come with me today. She's in a domestic problem here. So she asked me to share her portion. Normally, it's the one who's really more able to explain the project. She's the one who usually represents these projects more. I wanted to firstly recontextualize the origin of this research. It's a project that started with Université to begin with. I'm a teacher at Laval University in the anthropology department, and I did some research in des Inuit in 2017. And it's a research chair that was created. I could say it's a bit the result of an experience with the Canadian North and Nunavut, an experience of, because I did my doctorate in my postdoctorate in relationship with the Inuit, I think especially in Saturville, and also my working experience. I worked with the director of the Association of Organization Nunavik between 2014 and 17, I think, 4 years working at the Saturville. And these people, well, actually, I was put in contact with a reality that was really very significant for me. And also, it's a bit a part of my life experience because I lived in Nunavik in an intermittent way, because I had my children, which were going to the daycare as well. So my anthropologist training and education allow me to understand this misunderstanding, cultural misunderstanding. And for therefore program, this is where I aim my research. I wanted to document the Western institution in order to develop better government relationship, in order to try to raise their awareness with the difference of cultures and knowledge, and also to try to give to the Inuit a central place this position in order to regain their role as cultural expert and their ability to act. So I will talk about a research project. But before I go into that project, I want to put some faces in this project. So me, c'est myself actually that launched this initiative. So I contacted Pascal. I think she's talking about that. I mentioned her at the time where I was, no, she says in law and sociology. So she right away was interested in this project to work in Nunavik. I think she's talking about Suzy. So today she's working in the heart of a regional organization in Nunavik. She's a partners in this project. Marie-Ève Marchand, she has great experience in research in Nunavik and studies and research in Nunavik, and she's a student at Université. A bit like the presentation I've done earlier, the project is Samatiag. I'm sorry if I don't express it properly. It's a story of a relationship that started, well, even before 2018, when I was working already for the Association of Women in the justice field in Nunavik. And when I started my position as a professor in University at 2017, the first project that I suggested was to better understand the place and the role of the women that are working in Nunavik, because often when we talk about women in justice, we're talking about their role or their position as a victim and eventually criminals, eventually members or close to the victims and criminalities. And me and my experience, I listened and I've met a lot of people and a lot of women that were working in the justice system. And this project was targeting and really render justice to their work and that are working in a justice area. Just feel so we're able to number their presence, and it's always a great report. Then Following this, we respond to a call for offer in people in Canada in order to document and explain the story of the relationship between the police service in Nunavik and the Nunavut Mute. And we met the police officer, we met the different stakeholders and actors in the region. And this report was in relation with the Justice Canada. And it was targeting to better understand the report and the relationship which people have with the public safety. And at the same time, we were working in collaboration to try to develop with the Public Safety Canada, to develop a training session, a training on the history and the culture of the Nunavut Mute. And up to now, we have 200 officers that since we launched this training. So these are things that we had brought us to, firstly, to understand, to call for offer. So a program of revitalization and the human rights or the Indigenous people, right? Document and mobilize to see, to put an emphasis on the values, because it means a fact of being. So to document, to mobilize, and to promote, of course, with the different experiences that I've had, my team and I, we had developed through these preceding years, we were able actually to officialize partnership with the Department of Justice in McGill and the legal services also in the municipality, in the Kativik regional. We also worked or approached different regional organizations in the preceding years. But I could say for the 3 years of the project, we have learned to work with different organizations, with the McGill Justice Department and legal, social, judicial services, to see these three major objectives, mainly to document the knowledge and the traditional practices in Nunavik, and then to mobilize everything that we have learned, everything that we have been learning and concerning about the practices, the informal practices, because these practices, they are both formal and informal, and also to promote the knowledge of the legal practices that is being used and all the tools necessary to practice it. So in order to start, we learn to work together, because the inquiries in this project is and university initiatives. We needed time outside the fact that we had started. But we needed time because the both organization, the administration, McGill, in order to align our objectives, our research objective, in line with their needs and their priorities. So I could say that the first plan of the project was to really discovering our realities, because there were also a hesitation towards the research, because the question was, what is it used for, the research? And also, we really clearly understand that even in research that was done, or the idea was not really well understood by the Indigenous people. What is it used for? Why are you researching for? Could we decide? Can we be decider? Can we be actors? Can we be decision maker? So we had to define a little bit what we were doing. it was actually, we had to sort of explain to them that our role is a role of facilitators and try to support them in their effort and their objectives. So slowly trust sets in, but we realize that it is never clearly acquired, of course. We had to maintain relationship, and there's something that is very strong in those organizations. In order to start a relationship, we have to start to zero most of the time, and then even sometimes we have developed trust relationship, but the relationship is very fragile, delicate. It is important to pay attention, a very specific attention, a very efficient, so we could take care of these relations. So the first research activities that we've done were workshop, of course. So we led some very important workshop, and we've met to bring together people from justice in order to so that they share their expertise and their reality as well. These workshops were led in a very, actually it's a method that we have developed. It's a workshop of 2-3 days that is animated in both in Inuktitut and in English. And it was, so we had to some in English specifically, and for some of them. If we're talking about the success element, it really changed the project in a way that with her experience and her capacity to understand where we're coming from, and with her great knowledge of her people, she very clearly and well made the bridge between the two. So actually, she did not stop play this role throughout the research, and she did it with a great intelligence. It was the chemistry. It was fantastic. To tell you how much it was really fluid. We just have to say during a workshop, I just look at her because I had a question that came up to my mind, and I needed to direct, and she was able to capture my idea, to understand my idea and share it then afterwards with the majority of the women that were there. I say women because most of the participants were women. The agenda of the workshop also were expressed earlier in advance, so it was a collaboration work. It was a work of adjustment. The working program, the workshop program, we needed to adjust it with the university student, the employees, and so forth. So it was quite interesting. They were also participating in the transportation of the people, because some people needed some help for moving from one place to the other. So we wanted to make sure that they had place to do these workshops, because they should not be too isolated, because sometimes they're isolated one from another. I could tell you that this workshop were the time for really great exchanges, a profound exchange. There were 5 workshops altogether, and then the first one was organized with people from the workspace. The project was aiming to touch everyone, the employees of Nunavik. So right now it's the judge, it is not the staff from the court. Those were mainly people that have peripheral activities. So during the first workshop, we had some people that from the court that are working in a very independent way. They're hired by Ministry of Justice, but they never meet, never made together, or nearly never. The second short was we had the Justice Committee, and we're working with the Parajudiciary organization. All the governance of McGill, which is mostly all McGill. And the third workshop, we had agents from Sapumijit and the different community reintegrating agent. Vous connaissez, you know, the Kavak or Nunavik, and also the community integrated agent, the regional administration of Kativik. Fourth workshop, we did another one with the Justice Committee. The people are working in the Parajudiciary area. And certain people from the village, for one, some of them, it was the most beautiful workshop because, and the last shop, we had the Laval University on the campus. So the people hired for the last workshop, we were all together. And actually, these employees are mostly women. They're working in service and different services and different programs. And a village, they're very different, which there's a very isolated element, very strong isolating element. They're very rare where they could get together because they're so far apart, because they have to deal with the reality of their work and different justice system. So their workshop were really very strong moment, and also the apprenticeship. I think it was a horizontal apprenticeship. They learned one from each other. And another, the other activity of the project, Suzy led a workshop in Nunavik with different leaders, other ministries that are working together, but also we had some interviews with lawyers, the criminal system justice also, and all the other services of the Northern Organizations and justice-related services. We also had 5 workshops. We had a lot of data and transcription that we needed to analyze, so we decided to lead the analysis with the participant in order to disseminate the result afterwards, as I said earlier. So the analysis was done with the participant. This is the project of Nick. We invited everyone. There's some constraint as well here, but we had at least 20 participants during this workshop on the analysis. So how we proceeded? We put an extract of a statement that we found was important. We had the transcriptions of workshop, and we asked the participant to choose what would be the most representative for them, these texts. What were these sentences most important for them? These texts were talking about their own experiences. How would they position it? Like 1, 2, 3, 4. What are the best, most impressive for the one? So around the table, we had people working for just ministries of justice. We have different people from different backgrounds. The agents also from people that are working differently at different levels, but the same realities, actually. So I will share with you certain analysis which came out of these workshops. So the project, to begin with, the ambition of the research was to document the legal practices. But we clearly realized that the employers are more interested in their own reality, and they wanted to know how and what they're using on a daily basis. So shared with us firstly, in between two worlds. They feel that they're split between their people, their culture, and the colonial, strange foreign system. And they clearly stated as a colonial and foreign system. And they all say how difficult it is. They all mention that how difficult it is to work with the system. They say it's a horrible work. It's a very, very difficult work, horrible work to do. Because by working for justice, they're associated in the justice system that is colonial. It is not theirs. The Quebec, of course, they mentioned that how it is difficult to work with the small villages where everyone knows everyone, but they find themselves working with people. Sometimes they're members of their family, and that they see and encountered on a daily basis. Their role is to create some kind of an environment which is safe cultural environment, and so that they could share their trauma. But they're putting forward the fact that they were not at all trained for that. They were never trained to encountered with people that had been through these kind of trauma. So there's sometimes people could have mental health issues, and it is frequent in their community. So they're asking more training, more information, but nonetheless, the difficulty of their work is they really have at heart, because every employee that we met, they really have at heart their work. They know that if they were not there, there would be no communication between the colonial justice system and their legal system. Myself too, I find it very complicated, these justice systems. They really have, they're aware of these difficulties. The interpreters, for instance, say that they're not sufficiently a knowledge of this is hard to translate. Sometimes they have to explain to the Inuit what things, what is said, and then in the meantime, sometimes they find themselves in the middle of a discussion where they have to explain to the judge and to the lawyers what is the cultural impact on that. What is the cultural? I will not get in detail with that, but the question of language is the language barrier is really, really strong. There's certain concepts in justice that are extremely difficult to translate in French and also into their Inuit language or culture. It's almost practically impossible to translate. And that creates great misunderstanding. And this is a daily situation. They're encountered this difficulty. All the employees of the justice system find at one point, find themselves in a position where they have to explain one side and the other how the justice system exists, even though they herself says that how many trainings she's offering, people are learning as they're going along. So what do they base themselves on in order to work? In each of their program, certain actions that are accounting, they are defined by certain So she find herself certain times on there to relate on their own experience and knowledge, because and go back on the experience and that they have acquired actually. Their relation experiences, and they say that their ability to help others are not based on diplomas or academic knowledge, but uniquely on their observation and personal experience. Whatever they have captured and learned through their work, and also their role, their model role. Would be parents, husband, wives, elders or youth. For them, there are important models. And what she's using in a daily basis is their capacity to take care of other people, how to take care of others. So for this, they base themselves on their cultural ability. How could we help the other person to bring to the restoration of a healthy relationship or harmonious relationship? For example, they do not perceive the white control as or the people that we should consider them as to be punished. For them, this is not how they see things. So we have presented all these results of research, and the day after the workshop, and his workshop, we presented all these results and with the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Justice at Nunavik, and the criminal, penal and criminals system. It's the first time that the employees of the Justice of Ministers were meeting their key actors. And these people that are filling the landscape of the justice system. Before I end, I would like to share a tool that we have created, which is an interactive card map. We wanted to use this interactive map that will help us to describe the roles of the different actors and interveners, and from each organization which space in the organization they do. We want to draw a portrait of a map that would go over the justice system, but actually that would consider together and put together the structures, formal and informal, that are participating in the regulation, social regulation, the initial locals and regional that participate into the social web and security net, and also on which place, in which situation it is happening, create a tool of popularizing the information, and all this in order to develop good relationship. We have in certain spaces the how to apply justice. We also have the Nunavik territory, the land, where finding when the Inuit are leaving and to do some different traditional practices for healing, we're able to capture this vision because they're functioning away and outside the silo. So this is much more closer to what the Inuit are perceiving as far as what the justice should be on their side. And this is where it really was strong element in regards to the health issues, but this is another subject anyways. So we'll see, maybe we'll see in the future. This is a map. You can have access to the internet. And to finish, Suzy has presented a video. It's not finished yet, in which she's sort of defining a little bit the right of the Inuit people in Nunavut. Sometimes it's quite complex. This is it. I really used all my time. Thank you very much for you to have listened to me. Thank you very much, Caroline, for this presentation. I really like the idea that we see in the 360, you involve people at different level of the justice system in Nunavut. And we really see it. It's like a triangulation, if I could say this, which is academic level. But I think it's really, I really like the way you did the full circle of the whole situation. You really look at it from any horizon, from any point of view, to know that the people's experience. And I put in the chat for people who are interested, the interactive card, that map that you have mentioned, you should be able to consult it for sure. No, anytime you want to. So, can I go back to a second to talk about the title when I'm talking about the cultural situation exhausted by women today? This is where I realized that the knowledge and the justice practice were still very, very alive. But unfortunately, when we talk about cultural safety, we're referring ourselves to revitalization. But as far as we're concerned, they just need to recognize all this. Thank you very much. We're in a question period and comment. People have any question, comment? I'm opening the form, but I have a little question for Patricia and Nico. With regarding the greater number of signal for people as a 2 years old, have you made a connection with the alerts? Of course, Commission regularly do representation at the different partners, and lately, actually, I think it was last year, there was the end of BB alerts. Yes, of course. It's mostly social services that is involved a little bit more than the research, but definitely there is a relationship with this alert where babies are, yes. We had discussion to talk about this phenomena because it was illegal. If you want to add something, Nico? No, actually, one of our frustration ultimately is the fact that we do not have access to the new data. This DTI position, as I explained, we cannot see very well what was the impact of these changes. When it's changing of policies, but with the practices followed the political changes. It's not obvious. Hopefully, we'll see. We'll hope that it makes connection. We have any other question, comment, interrogation, whatever synonymous that we'd like to use? I'd like to mention, if no one else would like to talk, I would like to be interested in the results that Caroline presented. And maybe there could be similarity in justice, but for the use protection as well. There are really so many different ways of doing that are sometimes there's some incompatible. They're very, very difficult to make the bridge between different practices and different non-Asian people are building the system. I think that I thought that we had some similarity with the qualitative and quantitative report that we made. I think it was really interesting. There is some connectivity there. Yes, it's true. Would you like to add something, Caroline? I would have a question for you. I find it interesting to see how the percentage of negligence is important, knowing like you were saying, how do we define that? I was wondering, I know families, parents, what terms were you using? Because I can imagine the youth protection agent, where do they tick the the square, because in their form that would say, where do they take the information? Of course, there must be something, I don't know. I can imagine that this is how you did it. And behind that, when we really go talk with the family about it, what word do they use? Patricia, I will let you answer. I would just like to add, to start with, it is less a category, the research, but it's a legal category. The interveners are forced to use this category, this word, and to set the category. It's not something that is done behind some people's back, but as a beginning, I received a signaling. I have to open up an inquiry. I know that the school, the police, the neighbor has worried about the negligence of your children. Let's say I have this this call. So this is what is the starting point to develop that. Let's start with negligence. There's no percentage. We need to hope that with the possibility of changing laws, community would be able to develop a better vocabulary, which will be more supportive and much more exact and much more referring to their own knowledge. It's sad or serious negligence. Sometimes there are no negligence demonstrated, but I think that the interpreter thinks it is serious and is related to context and community where there could be poverty. There's intergenerational trauma that were not healed. There's issues where the poverty mixed with all the traumas, mixed with the loss of social fabrics. There's a lot of generations still that have been brought up in the woods right now. It's not that far back. It's really all these changes that are bringing a context where there is a non-native intervener that comes in a community, and often it is our youth, young interveners that will be working in a community that will sort of have a reading or an observation from their experience and eyes and, observation, but it is not understood the same way by the parents. And then I could see that there's some people that could better explain it than me, but in short, the term in a nutshell, the negligence is really not understood the same way from the parent and from the interveners. And the parents don't understand why this is happening because this is related to the social economic situation. Yes. Karine, bonjour. Hi. I'll ask my question directly in the chat. Me, I'm a legal aspect. I'm a professor at the Faculty of Montreal. The question that I was asking in connection with that, like Patricia, the follow-up to do about this research is if a link would have been done with a regional table with the regional protection, youth protection, if that round table would have been done with them, let's say, of course, obviously, Patricia is talking about the element that are contextual, that are really, really due to systemic discrimination when we understand the negligence concept. But what could change with the law is the link that I find it's interesting with the concept of parents, that we take a consideration that it's a connection with the parents, that we have a connection. And when we had the last change with the youth protection, there were the notion of parents was I didn't hear the word, but it's in the last session that were brought in a special element, the taking charge of the Indigenous children. But there was a workshop or a conference done with the commission that said that should be open, the relationship with the parent that should be open and wider. And this is in this global comprehensive aspect that we could do. Quebec has chosen to do the inverse, to really restrict themselves to a very restricted notion to the parent. It is an issue even in a non-native context. And then they realized that there was an issue. They want to stretch it a little bit, like expand it a little bit, but maybe that could be the project of enlarging it to having the parents that have significant relationship with the child. But it keeps cutting, I'm sorry. But it's still yet open enough to integrate and consider the indigenous context. But the question I was asking Patricia, are we in this evolution to do concretely something by changing the element in the law? There's already some discussion. We have a working committee with the inquiries for the APL 15 for the last changes that was done on the youth protection. Right now, they have a chapter for the people of First Nations people, and there is a series of articles that are talking about the family circle, or the idea of enlarging the significant people to expand the role to responding to the need of a child to other people than just the father and the mother. Well, there are some things for the First Nations people, and there is a movement. There's step forwards that are being done. There's a few articles that are right now put in place and to change this practice. So we're trying to changing the elaboration of tools on that. But for sure, we're bringing it about all the time on a continuous basis, and we're really trying and to put some levers in place to recognize the specifics for First Nations people. Ending, I don't know if people know this roundtable for this youth protection. I think it might have a direct impact. Of course, there are no researcher per se, and around the table, C3S is maybe a commission. We have a judge from a family centers or family service, a Minister of Justice, Minister of Family, lawyers that are working with the youth protection and represent children. So this representative represents the interest of a child. I think there's a lawyer from Obidjwan. We know that Obidjwan is a Atikamekw community that's pretty much self-sustained in question of youth protection and commission as well. The commission of the human rights. So there's no researcher around this table, but the commission being around the table can often make this connection with the research. I think this gives a great opportunity, a great bridge. There is an annual report of this roundtable, and the changes that could be done directly in this internal process that could be done directly at the Ministry of Justice. So I think that is an orientation, a path. It's a little bit around the spectacular of the justice, but I think it's promising. I think it's interesting we could get these results. Thank you very much to all. Thank you for being there. Thank you for the panelists. You'll have a questionnaire in the chat that will help us to make the state of the situation of our activities, and so it will help to fulfilling our reports. And it will be this webinar recording will be available within a month. If you have a few minutes, panelists, I would have other questions outside the topic. So have a nice day to all of you, and I will be leaving you.